Hello everyone, I wish you a wonderful day. The moment Toan stood under the harsh interrogation light, holding the phone he thought was lost forever and deciding whether to press charges against his own mother, made everything feel breathless. Now let's explore the story of Toan and Ly Tu Diem. When justice finally returns, but their hearts must choose how to move forward. After all these events, can they truly live in peace and rebuild their future from the simplest things? If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next videos. In the soft morning light filtering through the leaves, Toan stands quietly for a few seconds before opening the old book in his hands. The yellowed pages are not simply paper to him. They are a clear record of a period when he lost direction, doubted his own worth, and believed he might never return to a stable life. Ly Tu Diem gave him this book at the exact time when he was close to giving up. Holding it again now does not make him speak more, but it changes the way his eyes look. Ly Tu Diem stands very close, near enough to sense the steadiness of his breathing. She speaks in a calm and direct voice, saying she has kept every small thing he ever gave her, from a cheap hair clip to a small piece of fabric he once bought at the market. She kept them even after she was forced to leave the farm. For her, these are not objects. They are specific memories that prove he existed in her life in a real and lasting way. Toan listens without interrupting. He recognizes the consistency and effort behind her actions. He thanks her in a low and steady tone. He does not use big words. He asks directly what her work plan is for the day. She answers that she will go to the field to harvest potatoes. They quickly agree she will go alone so he can rest and reorganize the work at home. Toan explains his plan in clear and practical steps. He will dig straight holes in measured lines, build a solid trellis for the gourds, and if there is still time, assemble a small stone table in front of the house. He says this is not urgent work, but he wants to finish the main structure before she returns so she can see it immediately. Ly Tu Diem shows concern at once. She reminds him that his body has not fully recovered and tells him not to overwork. Toan nods and gives her the same instruction. They set one simple and direct rule for both of them. No hiding fatigue, no keeping health problems to themselves. They do not talk about distant dreams. They confirm they will build their future step by step through specific daily actions. She puts on her hat because he insists, wraps her arms around him tighter than usual, holds that embrace for a few extra seconds, then turns and walks away along the row of trees. Toan keeps watching until her figure disappears completely. After that, he picks up the hoe and begins working. He measures the distance for each hole with his own steps to keep the line straight and stable. The sun rises quickly and the temperature increases. Sweat runs down from his forehead to his neck, but he does not rush. He keeps a steady rhythm and controls his breathing. His goal is very clear. He wants the main frame of the trellis finished before she comes back. He imagines her face when she sees it standing there. That image gives him enough motivation to continue even when his arms begin to feel heavy. Out in the potato field, Ly Tu Diem walks along the dry and dusty path. The sunlight falls directly on her shoulders and back. She realizes she forgot her hat, but she does not turn around. She bends down and pulls each potato from the soil, brushes off the dirt, and places it into the basket. Her hands are soon covered with earth, but her movements remain firm and familiar. She thinks that if Toan were standing beside her, he would check the firmness of each tuber and say that the harvest time is correct because the crop has grown evenly. A small and quiet smile appears when she imagines that moment. She plans to take some potatoes home and cook a simple meal for the evening, something warm and easy so they can sit together and talk about the day. The heat soaks through her shirt and reddens her skin, but her working speed does not change. She has lived with sun and rain since childhood, so this condition does not slow her down. What stays in her mind is the image of the evening meal they will share. Back at the house, every strike of Toan's hoe follows a consistent pattern. He pauses several times to check the depth and the spacing to make sure the structure will be strong enough to carry the weight when the gourds begin to climb. He refuses to do careless work because he knows a weak frame will collapse later and waste both time and effort. He works slowly but with precision. Two people in two different places, but both are focused on specific and necessary tasks. Before the dust in the yard has fully settled, Toan appears at the doorway. Her voice carries urgency as she says that Thu has sent a message. Thu needs Toan at the station immediately. Toan stops in the middle of a movement and feels the weight in his chest change. He wipes the sweat from his face and asks a few short and direct questions to confirm the information. Then he goes inside to change his shirt. Several possibilities run through his mind, but he does not allow himself to guess too far. He thinks about Tu Diem working alone in the field and hopes the news will not reach her before he returns. He walks out quickly, leaving behind the unfinished holes and the half-built trellis. The dirt road feels longer than usual when he walks with tension. At the market, Tu Diem sits behind her stall of freshly harvested potatoes. She arranges them into neat rows and wipes away excess soil so they look cleaner. When customers approach, she greets them clearly and explains which type is soft and which type is firm. She weighs each purchase accurately and ties the bags carefully. The sun turns her face red, but her voice remains steady and friendly. In her mind, Toan is at home resting as she told him to do. Every bag she sells brings a small but reliable amount of money. She calculates that it will be enough to buy extra seasoning for dinner. The noise of the market is loud and constant, but she maintains her own working rhythm. She glances once in the direction of the farm and then turns back to the next customer, holding the quiet belief that the evening will be calm and normal. She does not know that at the same time Toan is walking faster along the road, moving away from the unfinished work and toward an answer he has been waiting for, carrying both concern and a controlled sense of hope. The interrogation room is lit by a hard white light that makes every detail visible and removes any chance of avoidance. Ly and Ly sit across the table with their shoulders slightly pulled in, their hands resting on their knees, their voices unsteady when they answer. Thu does not raise his tone and he does not rush. He moves in a clear order, repeats the timeline, the location, the method, and the source of the payment. Each question is short and direct. When Huyen's name is spoken, both men stop for a moment before nodding. They admit they were hired to harm Toan. They confirm they took the phone and the watch and tried to use the bank card, but failed because they did not have the password. The objects are placed on the table in front of them. The situation no longer allows denial. The room is quiet except for the sound of their answers. When Toan steps inside, his attention goes immediately to the phone and the bank card. He picks up the phone, checks the screen and the edges, and then turns it on. The system opens normally. His contacts are still there. His messages remain unchanged. The photographs and work information are intact. These are practical details, but for him they represent the recovery of a part of his life that he believed was gone. He places the phone back in position, takes the card in his hand, and checks the number as if to confirm its reality. He reads the handover document before signing his name. His voice is calm when he states that he will not press charges against his mother. He explains that this is his way of closing the past and repaying the years she raised him. Thu looks at him for a few seconds and nods. He reminds him that if additional evidence appears later, The legal process will continue according to procedure. Toan accepts this without hesitation. When Lich and Thai are taken out, the brief sound of the metal restraints fades quickly. The atmosphere in the room changes. Toan releases a long and controlled breath. The pressure that has stayed in his chest for a long period is no longer present. He keeps the phone in his hand for a moment. The password has not been changed. There are no signs of access attempts. That means his work network, stored numbers, and personal data are still secure. The bank card rests in his palm as a simple confirmation that his financial control has returned. He states clearly that he does not need to recover the watch that was sold. Stability has a higher value. He thanks Thu directly and leaves the station with a lighter pace than when he arrived. On the way back, he stops at the market he and Tu Diem use regularly. He selects meat, green vegetables, and the basic seasonings she often uses. These are ordinary purchases, but today they mark a transition point. The afternoon light is softer, and the air carries the smell of soil and dry leaves. He walks and plans the sequence of what he will tell her. He knows she will want the full process from the moment he left the house to the moment he signed the document. The image of her reaction produces a visible change in his expression. Regret still exists as a fact, but it no longer controls his movement. In its place, there is a clear sense that the next stage of their life can continue. As he reaches the gate, he sees Tu Diem entering the yard with her basket and the remaining goods from the market. There is still sweat on her forehead and dust on her trousers. He calls her name in a steady voice. She stops because she recognizes the difference in his tone. When she sees the phone in his hand and the expression on his face, she understands that the situation has changed. He moves closer and tells the entire sequence in order, from the message from Toan to the questioning at the station and the moment the phone and the card were returned. He presents it so she can see each step clearly. Her reaction is immediate. She steps forward and holds him tightly. She does not ask about the attackers first. Her priority is his safety and the confirmation that the threat has ended. Her eyes fill with tears while her face shows relief. They remain standing in the yard under the late afternoon light. The environment is the same, but the uncertainty has been removed. Toan explains his decision regarding his mother in a calm and structured way. Tu Diem listens without interruption and answers with a simple statement that his safety is the only result that matters to her. When she hears that the two men are being held, her shoulders relax. This is a visible sign that the fear she carried is no longer active. Toan then proposes a practical action. They will return to the market together and buy additional food for the evening meal. Tu Diem agrees immediately. He puts on his hat and reminds her to hold firmly when she sits behind him on the bike. She wraps her arms around his waist and rests her head against his back. The bike moves forward through the gate and onto the dirt road. While they ride, their conversation shifts to normal subjects. They discuss how to cook the potatoes, how much seasoning is left, and how he will finish the trellis the next morning. They do not return to the attack because it no longer requires attention. Their voices are lighter, and the pauses between sentences are comfortable. The road in front of them is unchanged. The work is still waiting at home, and the next day will still require effort. However, the main obstacle has been removed. They continue forward with the confirmed understanding that they have passed a critical stage and remain together without damage to their trust or their plan for the future.
Toan bắt đầu buổi sáng với cuốn sách cũ, gợi lại quãng thời gian khó khăn và sự gắn bó thầm lặng của Tu Diem. Hai người chia nhau công việc, cô ra đồng thu hoạch khoai, còn anh ở nhà dựng giàn bầu. Cùng hứa sẽ không giấu nhau bất cứ điều gì. Khi Tử Phan báo tin, Thủ gọi lên trạm, Toan gấp công việc và đối diện sự thật. Hai kẻ gây hại đã bị bắt. điện thoại và thẻ ngân hàng được trả lại. Anh quyết định không truy cứu mẹ mình, chọn khép lại quá khứ. Trong khi đó, Từ Diễm vẫn bán khoai ở chợ, không biết biến cố đang được tháo gỡ. Chiều về, họ gặp lại trong sân nhà, ôm nhau nhẹ nhõm. Tin vui giúp họ lấy lại niềm tin và tiếp tục xây dựng cuộc sống bằng những việc giản dị mỗi ngày.